FM News Talk 97.1. On-demand audio.
I want you to listen to this bite by Donald Trump last night.
Those peddling the narrative of cops as a racist force in our society, a narrative supported with a nod by my opponent, shared directly in the responsibility for the unrest in Milwaukee and many other places within our country.
We are joined right now by Heather McDonald. She is the Thomas W. Smith Fellow at the Manhattan Institute. She is the author of several books, including The War on Cops, which is very fitting for the time we're going through right now. Heather, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me on, Marc. I so appreciate it.
Thank you. I wanted to get your thoughts on Donald Trump's speech last night.
Well, Marc, you chose the absolute key statement in the whole speech. There was no more important observation that he made last night than his acknowledgement of the fact that this Black Lives Matter narrative is leading to violence. It is leading to violence, above all, usually against other blacks, but it's also leading to violence against cops. It's leading to violence against property and the very foundation of civilization, which is law and order.
Well, he mentioned it several times in his speech, and the sad thing to me, and I mentioned this as I started my program today, is that the media coverage of this is completely overshadowed by talk of the two new people he brought in on the campaign. None of them are talking about the meat and potatoes issues that he discussed in the speech last night.
Marc, you and I are on the complete same page. This is exactly my response. I was shocked when I read the newspapers this morning. Well, the New York Times barely acknowledged it. The Wall Street Journal didn't at all. It's completely appalling, but in fact, we should not be surprised because the media, by and large, is so complicitous in the false Black Lives Matter narrative that it's, possibly they just don't want to see it contradicted. But this was a very, very important speech, and if it got the coverage it deserves, it should be the beginning of a necessary pushback against this epidemic of lies that has been put out there by President Obama, Hillary Clinton, the media, the activists, and practically the entire university system, which says that we have a racist criminal justice system. That is simply not true. The facts, the analyses do not bear it out. Police respond to victimization and crime. They don't respond to race.
Yeah, I'd like to, I know when I had you on once before, we focused a little more on the contents of your book, The War on Cops. It's interesting. Last week, the 9th of this month, was the 2-year anniversary since the Michael Brown shooting here in Ferguson. I had the mayor of Ferguson on, who said that after the Department of Justice recommended all these reforms in his city, the number of traffic stops dropped by about 60%. However, the racial makeup of those traffic stops was identical to what it was before they were forced to stop proactive policing.
Well, we have seen that everywhere, Marc. In New York City, after a federal judge declared the New York Police Department guilty of racial profiling in its pedestrian stops, otherwise known as stop, question, and frisk, stops dropped about 90%. Ratios of stops identical. Same thing happening in Chicago. And the reason is because the cops are not determining where they are called. They are called by victims. They go where crime is, and given the fact that blacks commit homicide at 8 times the rate nationally than whites and Hispanics combined, and their rates of robberies and shootings are even more disproportionate, the cops would love if they were for once called out on a drive-by shooting and they got a suspect description of a white person in a Chicago or Milwaukee or St. Louis or Ferguson. It virtually never happens. It is those ratios that matter, and the incidence of victimization that matters to the police, not the race of the perpetrator.
We're talking to Heather McDonald, who is with the Manhattan Institute and also wrote the book, The War on Cops. I had a caller to my show last week who argued to me that the Black Lives Matter movement has been hijacked, and they are not the ones pushing this negative narrative against the police. I disagreed with him, but I wondered if I could get you to answer that charge.
I think that's utterly whitewashing. Every Black Lives Matter protest that I've seen features KKK cops, killer cops, the most hateful rhetoric, epidemic, racist cops. It's inseparable. They are getting exactly what they've asked for, and they are the main source today. But again, amplified by the President Obama constantly of the charge that there is an epidemic of racist police killings of blacks. In fact, 4 studies have come out this year alone showing that police are more likely to shoot whites than they are blacks. The perception that the public has of there being an epidemic of police killings of blacks is a media-driven phenomenon. 50% of all police killings each year are of whites, 26% of blacks. That 26% is lower than what blacks' violent crime rate would predict. But if the media focused on that 50% of white victims, the public would think there was an epidemic of police shootings of whites.
Yeah, it just, you can't deny the numbers once you dig into them, which is why I find your book so fascinating. Heather McDonald, author of The War on Cops. I hope everyone has a chance to pick up your book on Amazon and wherever else they may buy books and take a look at it. Thanks again for your time.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Marc. I so appreciate it.
Have a great day. Thank you. Love having Heather McDonald on here. She cuts through the chaff and just gets right to the issue. And it all comes down to the numbers that she studied from the FBI crime report. She's not making this stuff up. Read the book.